March 30th, 2018 marked the start of the Great March of Return in Gaza along the Israeli barrier which separates Gaza and Israel. Palestinians are demanding the right to return to their lands that were taken over by Israel together with the end of an 11-year Israeli blockade. Since March, over 220 people have been killed by Israeli soldiers and around 24,000 injured. East of Gaza City is the neighborhood of Malaka. It's a hotspot for these mass demonstrations. Every Friday, Palestinians storm the fence to challenge the Israeli blockade. Women, children and families gather at the fence. Some watch while others participate and get shot. Near the first aid tent, we see a new patient arrive. He was shot in the leg. He's only 16. We will call him Issam.
We have a case with an open fracture. And we don't know if he has a vascular or neuro injury. And we'll stabilize the patient here before we refer him to a hospital.
The frantic activity doesn't stop. Nearly 50% of those assisted here are discharged immediately. This takes the pressure off the hospitals. There are 10 trauma stabilization points along the fence. They were established by the Ministry of Health and the Palestine Red Crescent Society, financed by the European Humanitarian Aid Department and supported by the World Health Organization.
In the past month, many of the gunshot victims that we have received were hit in the lower limbs. Previously, a huge number of patients had received gunshot wounds in their upper body, in the chest, neck and the head.
Issam is transferred to Gaza's main medical center, the Al-Shifa hospital. We meet him one day later. His leg has since been amputated.
I was holding the fence, covering my two friends who were cutting the barbed wire. Something happened. I didn't see anything. My leg felt like it was flying off. The rest hit my stomach. I've participated in the marches every Friday because we are surrounded and under siege. We have to support each other. We know that we might be injured, but we have to make sacrifices.
Issam is joining around 100 others who have lost limbs during the demonstrations. Since the protests began, Gaza's hospitals are filling out with patients. The huge influx of casualties is pushing Gaza's already crumbling health system to the brink of collapse.
Healthcare system in Gaza is in a very fragile state. It has been suffering for several years already from the closure that was imposed on the Gaza Strip, from the chronic shortages of essential life-saving medications and medical supplies, as well as from the lack of qualified health workers who can provide quality treatment.
As the protests have intensified, the EU has increased its support. It's now providing further training and medical equipment, but patients with more serious injuries will need long-term care. This looks really like the challenge today. How many people are in need of long-term assistance here in Gaza?
And in fact, we are talking about 5,000 more or less people who have been injured with lower limb injuries during demonstrations, out of which 500 people, will necessitate limb reconstructions, which means up to 7 surgeries and up to 3 years of continuous rehabilitation. So the EU will support this long-term health care by the installation of a specialized ward, which will provide limb reconstruction and post-op services.
For many, the road to recovery will be long and painful. We travel to south of Gaza to the city of Khan Yunis. We meet a man whose rehabilitation is far from over. Injured in April, he is in grave need of a bone transplant. But both Israel and Egypt won't allow him to leave Gaza. We are calling him Ali.
The gas canister impacted me directly here. It entered my mouth and stopped in the palate. I felt everything turning around me. I felt dizzy. I put my hand on my cheek and I saw blood on the ground. I felt my bone wasn't there anymore.
Ali has been operated on twice, but doctors here are unable to do anything more than prescribe painkillers to alleviate his pain.
I'm unable to live normally as I did before the injury. I wish I could at least be able to eat bread. I miss bread.
This clinic in Khan Yunis treats around 200 patients daily. They've had a 20% increase in patients since the demonstrations began. The NGO Médecins du Monde, with EU funding, supports several clinics like this in the Strip.
Our intervention focuses on emergency and trauma cases to upgrade the capacity of this clinic in terms of wound care and post-op care. We try to supply as much as we can so that the patient service here become charge-free, but even in our work, we cannot supply 100% of what needed.
Ali participated in the first 2 Fridays of demonstrations in March and April. He told he was participating peacefully and no one had guns. He didn't expect to end up like this.
We were about 300 meters from the fence. In spite of this, I was injured. The bulk of the people that were injured were at least 500 meters away.
Like 53% of Gazans, Ali doesn't have a job. None of his family have regular work. Water and electricity are rationed. Everyday life is a struggle.
Economic conditions here are really difficult. We have nothing. That's why people are demonstrating at the fence. It has triggered demonstrations. They want freedom, they want the end of the blockade, they want to work, to have a life like everybody else.
Gaza residents are isolated. The right to health care remains a challenge not only for those injured, but also for those suffering from chronic diseases like diabetes or cancer. Whether ill or injured, all they can do is wait.